people have said they have never seen where the figure of 300 votes was to be distributed. They've never seen 66%, roughly 2,000 votes going to one candidate. Those votes went, of course, from Martin Harley right back to Joe McHugh, and they put him in a place that he hasn't been before in this election. They put him out front of the remaining four on 10-9-2-0. So all of this comes with a health warning, but I think it's safe and fair to say that Joe McHugh probably is okay to get one of those last three seats. But everything else after that is very much up in the air. I'm hearing all sorts of stories. I'm hearing all sorts of figures. It depends on which corner you turn. I don't think it'd be right to be repeating things, but all I would say is that we could end up in a situation where one of two Fianna Fáil candidates may lose out. And it's suggested that Thomas Pringle has done much better than many would have expected from the transfer of votes coming from someone that he has on many occasions criticised, particularly in relation to that RTE programme, John O'Donnell. Despite that, there's a trend that we've seen here today, all day, that independents transfer well to independents. And if the information I have been given from various different, but we may have Charlie McConalogue and Patrick O'Connor trying to get the last seat. That's the word to the wise. All of that could be proved incorrect. It's a very tricky game at this stage, but I have never ever in my time come across an election as tight with so many, well, 4 into 3 doesn't go. Niamh, it's electric.
It absolutely is. The room is filling up here. The tensions are very, very high. Very, very exciting at the same time. Nail biting for sure. We're waiting now just any time soon for herself to come out and call it.
Just to let people know as well, Niamh, we've picked up, it's actually Margaret was telling me that Frankie Feehan's not out of the fight in Sligo Leitrim, and that he's closing the gap on Eamon Scanlon. So it could well change there. We were suggesting that it was Fianna Fáil too. And obviously Martin Kenny got elected yesterday, and the other seat going to Marion Harkin. And up until now, we've been suggesting that in all likelihood, Eamon Scanlon would get the 4th seat. That's no longer certain. So Frankie Feehan may well make it there. And I assume, I haven't figures in front of me, that will be thanks to help from Thomas Walsh. Yeah. John Gerard, you look like somebody's going to tell me something.
Which version of the story do you want to hear that I'm getting around there? Several. It's getting very tense behind, as you can well imagine, because we're getting to the very end, and literally the end for some of the candidate. Listening to what's going on there, it's got very, very tight. It would appear McConalogue has got a reasonable transfer. It would appear as well that Thomas is getting a reasonable transfer there. And certainly it would appear that Pat the Cope is coming under serious pressure to pull a rabbit out of the hat at this point. I think if we were looking at it at this point, I think he's the one who has got ground to make up at the minute. That's on the whispers around the place. I stress, but judging by the body language of people as you go around there, you're going to get used to it. I certainly think that Joe McHugh's and his Thomas Pringle seems on the bundle that's there to be getting a reasonable transfer, which would see him over the line. McConalogue lead the cup, and it's, to be honest, I think at this stage you're down to which of them is going to get the most, and it would appear it's very hard to judge from the bundles on the table there. But you have to be clear, Pat the Cope needs 700 more votes than Charlie McConalogue if he's to survive. One of those two to survive. So it's getting very tense. The crowds are filling up. It's 4 and 5 deep there. The tiredness is setting in. Tempers are getting a bit
Eat it.
Yeah, people are edgy.
Yeah.
Look, it's coming here, there, and everywhere, but there are suggestions that Pat the Cope Collar is in big trouble.
I think it's fair to say he needs some serious numbers from the few remaining papers for him to survive. I think he is in serious trouble. It's definitely down to Charlie McConaughey and Pat the Cope. And at the minute, like the difficulty for Pat the Cope is that he is 600 votes behind his running mate, so he would need to better his running mate's vote by 600 odd votes to see him home. And that's a big ask. Looking at the picture, looking at the ballot papers that I have seen being sorted there. They're sorting Thomas Pringle's papers are directly behind us.
Yeah,
at the Cope,
Michael
so-
Naughton, a quick word. Michael Naughton's in the Fianna Fáil camp. Let's not write anybody's epitaph so far, but the words we're picking up here is that Pat the Cope is in trouble, and that the last seat may be Pat the Cope, Charlie McConaughey, Pringle safe. Joe McHugh would appear seems to be safe, courtesy of that Martin Harley transfer. Is that a fair summation of where we're at?
Yes, Michael, and that mean unfortunately, basically, when you coming into this last round of votes being distributed by John O'Donnell, basically that Fianna Fáil were in trouble. Basically, the two Fianna Fáil candidates will be fighting for the last seat, and that has come to fruition. And basically, at one stage, we thought that Charlie was gone. But basically, looking at the tally figures coming in now from the John O'Donnell, it looks like Pat the Cope Collar is in trouble. And basically, but it's a very tight margin. So I mean, it's a bit too tight in there to say for definite. But you're looking at the region about 100, maybe 50 votes, maybe the difference.
I've been told not to say this. If the margin's that tight, might we be here?
Look, it's a Fianna Fáil vote. I mean, it's Fianna Fáil candidates.
Yeah.
So I couldn't see a rate count. I mean,
you said it first.
I know.
I tricked you.
Yeah, and as I say, I mean, look, I mean, in politics, nothing is certain. I mean, it's changed so much, and it's a very, very, election to call, because basically at one stage, yesterday we thought, Thomas Pringle was gone, and then basically got a huge transfer, and he was back in the race, and then early on today it looked like Joe McHugh, and I mean,
how long are you, man and boy, involved in elections? How long have you been watching?
I'm probably looking at tally figures. I'm working at elections nearly for the last 20 years.
And is this the most bizarre, the most changing I've ever seen in terms of ebbing and flowing this way and that way?
Exactly, Michael. You're 100% right in that. I mean, basically there was basically a big anti-government vote, and basically Fianna Fáil was classed as being in government with Fine Gael.
Yeah.
And basically the votes were basically go anywhere but to Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael, and that's basically and we see that. But I mean, also, I mean, the one thing basically from this election, I mean, and you tell people they're going to maybe vote one or two, but basically the 7s and the 8s and the 9s and 10s count here today, and that's a huge thing for people maybe in the future going into ballot boxes.
There's a couple of things have happened here, and let's go through them kind of carefully. Joe McHugh is safe. The vote, there'll be enough votes coming from a candidate in the same electoral area as him, no matter what. I don't know what the figure is, so let's give that as a given.
Yeah.
Thomas Pringle, apparently, despite the fact that Thomas Pringle and John O'Donnell would be diametrically opposed to each other, and Thomas has been very vocal in his criticism of John O'Donnell. He's picking up a substantial enough number of transfers to be safe.
Not alone a huge amount, Michael. You're 100% right in what you're saying, but also he's getting the most. He's come back with about over 1,400, close to 1,500. Joe McHugh is coming back with about 1,200, and that Pat the Cope Collar looking roughly around in 930, and Charlie's come back with 958, 960.
And it could literally be 100 votes between the two Fianna Fáil.
Exactly, you're looking at about that, maybe 100, 150 when the final figures come in.
We're not going to do this in terms of epithets. We might come back and talk about that, but this is a huge turnaround.
Yes, a huge turnaround from basically where we were yesterday. I mean, and the way that the figures came, nobody seemed that's common. But I mean, the people have voted, and have the democratic right, and we have to accept that. And as it might be a bad day for Fianna Fáil, and that overall, basically, the talk of this election will be all about Sinn Féin and that, and probably in the days and years to come.
Stay with us, Brendan. Just to maybe get a second voice on this. Micheál Naughton is telling me that it's not looking good for Fianna Fáil, that they may lose one of two. And based on figures he has in front of him, it may well be Pat the Cope Gallagher. Is that? Am I getting ahead of myself?
No, you're not, and I would have to concede the fact that Fianna Fáil are to lose a seat, and that are to hand at me and Michael. In fairness, has played a key role in coordinating the tally. That it does look like that Pat the Cope Gallagher will not be retaining his seat.
And if that's the case, it's kind of I suppose one of the biggest names in Donegal politics, Irish politics, of course, first elected to the Dáil in 1981 and retaining his seat in 1997, served, I think, 2 terms as an MEP, was last Cancorla. I mean, it's a huge shock. It must be.
It is a huge shock, but look, I suppose from the outset, the party lost a third of its first preference votes, and we've been on the back foot there right throughout. And what was more and more evident as each count was progressing, that there was a considerable chunk of the vote moving against the mainstream parties, be that Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael, and the fact that we had suffered the heaviest of all losses, a third of the vote gone on the first preferences, it was always a difficult time for us to retain the seat because we had lost too much on the first count. But in relation to Pat the Cope, I want to say, as chairman of the party, Pat was a consummate politician. He devoted his entire life to public service, and he was the old-style politician that was always there, always available, always has done a Trojan amount of work over the number of years that he started off in Donegal County Council in 1979, progressed to the Dáil in 1981, held different ministerial posts, and then, as you said yourself, Michael, he was in the European Parliament, and then more laterally back as last Cancorla of Dáil Éireann.
His big strength wasn't it, Minister for Fisheries?
He was a very good fisheries minister, and then he had a great period in time in the Gaeltacht, in Ring the Gaelta. He was reforming in that ministry, and but he had a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of contacts. And the one thing about Pat the Cope at all times was he was always contactable. And that was the one thing that everyone has to say. And regardless of political affiliation, or if he had no political affiliation, it made no difference to Pat. He would work for one and for everyone. And he has more often than not, your career ends with you losing your seat. He didn't deserve to lose his seat, but in the tsunami that was here in Donegal, where we had lost so much vote to Sinn Féin, and particularly in West Donegal, that we just couldn't surmount that, and that has cost us the seat here at the end of the day.
He was elected as a county councillor in 1979, and no matter what other position he picked up, whether it be as a TD or an MEP, I was always struck by the sense, anytime I ever dealt with him, that he never stopped being a councillor, if you know what I mean, and did the other jobs. I mean, he was very, very much of everything that was going on, and a bit like what John O'Donnell said earlier, everything was local.
Exactly, Michael. And I mean,
whether he was in Brussels or not.
This is a very sad day for the county. Don't let anybody get away from that. We've no basically representation over there. I mean, Thomas Pringle basically in Killybegs. I mean, but I mean, for me and the Fianna Fáil party, I mean, unfortunately, Pat the Cope was my go-to man. Basically, if anyone rang me with issues, I mean, and you rightly said, Pat was on the ground. Pat basically, did with council work, and he would help me with council work and stuff like that. I mean, and just before Christmas there, we had an issue basically people out in the continent basically getting sick and trying to get them back. Pat was always there, day or night, to take that phone call to work with you and to help the people. But unfortunately, I mean, we're in the times that we're in. I mean, it's a huge vote away from Fianna Fáil and basically the other parties. And this election will be talked about for Sinn Féin. I mean, but I mean, I don't, and I no disrespect to anybody that's elected here today, I don't think any of them will probably work as hard as Pat the Cope as down to the years.
Going back to you, Brendan, in terms of Thomas Pringle and those transfers, Micheál was saying there that there's an astonishingly high transfer figure for Thomas Pringle from John O'Donnell. not in your, I was going to say your wildest dream, your worst nightmares, could you have seen that happening? Bear in mind that you're in the Fianna Fáil gene pool.
Well, on the outset, you wouldn't have anticipated it. But then when you look, going back to the point that we made it all along, it's the votes that were transferring into these candidates, be that John O'Donnell or be that any of the other candidates. It was them that was making the significant difference as each count progressed. There was this keep it in the left movement right across each count, and that was distorting even Mary T. Sweeney's distribution, that there was such a transfer from Mary T. Sweeney, who's pro-life, to pro-choice Thomas Pringle. And so I think what happened here is the sway that was evident from the ballot boxes once they were opened, that one, the main parties were losing votes. We lost more heavily than others, but that vote continued to go across all the various counts and eliminations right down to John O'Donnell there, when you see a very significant transfer to Thomas Pringle. But it was a movement of the people, and this is the decision that they wanted to take. This is the decision that they put into the ballot boxes, and that is politics, and we must live by it.
So when the dust settles, 4 out of 5, and Patrick McLaughlin knew, in inverted commas, because he was there before, taking the 5th seat, but not taking Pat the Cope's seat as such, because he and Pierce Doherty got in on the first count. When you look at it, and maybe this is difficult for both of you, bearing in mind you're Fianna Fáil Director of Elections, you're a Fianna Fáil councillor. Hats off to Thomas Pringle. He was in a tight corner, and again, as in 2016, a remarkable performance to hold a seat.
Well, in politics, if the wind is in your back and the wind is full in your sail, it's easy to float your ship. We came in here on Sunday, and when the ballot boxes were opened, it was self-evident that a third of our first preference votes had gone. And we were completely on the back foot right throughout the day. And in fairness, it is a remarkable achievement that in a 5-seater, where a party lost a third of his vote, that we fought to the last count, and we were in contention, possibly for 2 seats, right up until the transfer from Martin Harley to Joe McHugh. That drew him the lifeline. We thought if it was 1,500 or less, we could handle it, and in actual fact we would have handled it, but the fact that it was over 1,900 votes pretty much was the last straw, and we couldn't surmount that last hill. But for a party that has lost the vote, and we have to examine why so much vote deserted is here in Donegal, but I'm led to believe that it's no different to Galway or Clare or Kerry, that the vote has deserted Fianna Fáil. My own view, my own personal view of why that is, that the contagion of supporting the government for the last 4 years, under confidence and supply, has cost us dearly. We were neither in government nor in opposition. We did what was necessary for the country in times of Brexit, and we got no dividend for that. And through that, and having done that for 4 years, we actually lost part of our identity and allowed a situation where Sinn Féin could occupy the space that we traditionally occupy.
You agree with that summation in relation to confidence and supply? It backfired?
Yes, it definitely did, and probably, we paid the price. We should have probably, pulled out of government sooner, and that. But the real situation, I mean, there is a big swing, nationally. I mean, when you look at around Dublin and around the country, there was Sinn Féin councillors that only got 2 and 300 votes. They couldn't even get a council seat. Now TDs, and
18,000 votes.
That's very hard to understand in a short period from last May, and that. But look, I mean, we're dealt with what we're dealt. I mean, we have to look to the future, and bet, all the talk now is about, is Fianna Fáil going to get with Sinn Féin? Is Fine Gael going? The reality situation is people voted for a left government. There's a left government there now without Fianna Fáil or without Fine Gael. So I mean, let Mary Lou, let them start the plate now, and let them go into government if they have the numbers.
I'm not sure, but I'll let you in a second, John. Are there enough seats for them to get to 80? Because I missed out on the national picture all day.
There is
Technically there is. No, yeah.
And how likely do you think that is that the left could form a government?
Well, they certainly organised themselves sufficiently well in every count centre for the 39 constituencies.
Yeah, correct.
They had.
And I think I made the point a couple of times that one of the the supply and demand, or whatever you want to call it, between the two parties, they got absolutely no credit for it, because Sinn Féin were able to go around and say, well, government, no, that's not the way we would do it. I agree. I think the time has come. It's very easy to do that. It's very easy to do that when you're not within a mile of power. When you're in power, the test will be if the left are to stay in power and they're to come back in a year's time to the same electorate and say, well, we couldn't do this because the Minister of Finance said he couldn't give money to the Department of Health or Department of Sport. And I think that's where that will be the acid test of this. It's been very easy for everybody on the left. Oh, that's terrible. Do the banks, whatever, that's not the way to do it. We would never do that. We would put more money in your pocket. We would have the minimum wage at 15 euros an hour. Fine. Then I agree at this time that the logical thing is to say to the left, you know what? Maybe we've been getting it wrong when you've fallen from Gael. You know what, lads? Better away here. Form a government. And I think in a year's time, then as these same people have to go back out and say, oh, we can't deliver that, and we can't take taxes down, or we can't actually get the medical floor, the medical card, we can't actually do that, we can't do that.
But they will, in fairness, John, they will have some successes, whether you might argue then that that's not financially wise, financially opportune. You know, let's say that was to happen. Not everything they do will fail.
No, but problem is they're not even going to have the resources to do a hell of a lot of the promises. Realistically, if you look at some of the things that the left-wing parties have proposed, not remotely possible to do.
Okay, let's bring in Niamh. Niamh, Thomas Pringle looks like he's going to retain his seat, which is good news for Killybegs. Obviously, you're from Killybegs, but the thought struck me, if what Micheál and John Jerd and our Director of Elections here, Brendan, have suggested that Thomas could be in a very strong position as an independent in government.
He could, if he wants to do that. And let's see, will he do that now? It'll be very interesting to watch the space and see, because it's very, very easy, as the men have said here, to sit back and to give out. When you have to try to defend something, it's very difficult, and you can see that from all of the ministers that have lost their seats in this election, and all of the people who have genuinely lost their seats to try to defend. So Pierce Doherty wants to be the finance minister. Then wouldn't that be quite an interesting time ahead to see what happens there and how they'll cope? I think Padraig McLaughlin mentioned yesterday about a strategy for housing, and they're going to develop this big strategy for new housing policy, and they're going to get it up and running straight away. Let's give them the chance. They hadn't got the chance. Let's see how they get on now.
Okay, so what are you going to say, Michael?
Yes, Michael, I have to agree with that. But I mean, also come back to the point John made. I know, as I always say, in our term, you know, when you're involved in sports, you say it's very easy to be the hurler on the ditch. But I mean, we're here in Donegal, and you got to take things back to the local people. Because at the end of the day, no matter what happens nationally, we're in Donegal here. I mean, and you know, I know how to think. I work in Lifford. I'm a councillor, and I sit with Sinn Féin councillors in Lifford. They're anti-business, and I know hesitating to them. When the rate issue came up for businesses last year, you know, they were in favour of it. That, I mean, and without the business people basically in the county, we have very little. So definitely, been, you know, there will be big choices to be made here. There will be basically, and you know, you mentioned the minimum wage and all that. And when we're Northern Ireland, and if you look at Northern Ireland, the minimum wage in the north is only $7.80. Down here last week, it went up again on small business people to $10.20. The old age pension in the north is £10. I mean, down here they're getting $2.30. I mean, up in the north they put the pension age up to 66. I mean, now, the big issues, and it's very easy to say that. But when you get into power and you have to get a budget, and you have to have money there to pay all these. That's when the big test, and that's when people will be found out.
Okay, I take your point, but I'm kind of thinking, hang on a minute, Michael. Into government, you're almost judging them to fail before they've started. You know, I mean, there are very able people in Sinn Féin, and there are other very able TDs, independents.
I totally agree with you, Michael. All I'm talking about is I work in the Donegal County Council. I work with the local councillors. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the local issues.
No, I know you are, but in the broader thing,
and
I mean, with the exception of yourself, Niamh, although Brendan, you've been quiet in this, you're sort of writing them off before it happens.
No, Michael, I
can
don't think
come in
we're.
and
Sorry.
not-
Okay, go.
I think what both gentlemen are saying, and indeed Niamh, to be fair to all three, is that they have put before the people a manifesto and a package of promises or commitments that they can't simply live up to. Everyone in the room knew that. They had a spending programme of 34 billion euros. Look at, if there was 34 billion euros there, Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, Labour, every other would have put it on the table. Sinn Féin put it on the table, they dressed it up nice and neatly, and the general public went with it. Anyone and everyone here would agree. Look at, if there was 34 billion hanging around, it would be spent by the previous government now and previous governments to that. What we're saying is what was offered to the electorate and packaged to the electorate was never realistic. And you're at a situation now whereby Sinn Féin have done better than expected, although if they had more candidates, they would have done better even again. And they're now either in the driving seat with a government of the left, the alternative left, vote left, keep it left, and they're going to have to step up. But they don't, most likely don't want to.
Go
No,
ahead.
I think what Michael was saying earlier, but it doesn't matter how able or how professional people are going to be, imaginable way, any politician can implement policies that are just unworkable. And that's the bottom line. And I think the temptation, it has to be,
But you kind of, I'm paraphrasing, but you sort of said, and it was almost out of frustration, you said, let them at it. You know,
well, that the people have said let them at it, haven't they?
fair point.
Yeah, people vote.
Yeah. What are you saying, Michael?
The people have said it.
The people vote. So that's what people think. You know, that, and in fairness, people have the right to vote, and that's
Yeah.
That's right.
That's why we have
That's
elections.
totally right. Yeah.
That's why we have elections. I mean, and, you know, that's the choice they made, and that's what we come back with. And you know, they look for a left, they've got a left. So now it's up to them to play their part in it.
Yeah, I digress for a minute. Frankie Featon may get the fourth seat in your hometown or home county. Yeah, ahead of Scanlon. So that's not good news
That's
if
another
you're
thing.
wearing a Fianna Fáil hat.
So that
And does that
look like we're making it come in with 40
and
seats.
that comes back to what you were saying, Brendan, that it hasn't been good for Fianna Fáil.
No, and I think if you look at it, in multi-seat constituency, and we have it here, the last seats, because of the movement of the left vote and keeping it left, and I'm harping on about this, but I didn't credibly believe it until I saw it actually work tangibly here before us, how that chunk of vote, they're starting off with the original surplus of 9,000 papers, transferred around various candidates right to the end,
Yeah.
and carried
Never seen
home
it before.
the last remaining. Now, I've never seen that, and I've
No.
studied politics inside and outside in this country and in other countries, but how that was choreographed, how that was organized, I would dearly love to know. But it did work, and it worked to a T.
But was it choreographed to that extent, or did they get
You
lucky?
could have 39 accidents in 39 constituencies, I suppose.
I go back to where we started in the yesterday, Michael. I think it started out where it did start out, but I think the two main parties then took some incredible decisions that handed the momentum support to the left-wing parties by saying incredibly at the start, we don't really want you in interviews here, debates on this. We're not going to talk to you. And I think that I have a feeling that sort of molded the more left-wing votes in together. And I think they all started coming together. And I think the national strategy on that was absolute madness by both parties. I would none of them I would give a pass on that. I think the two main parties, the hierarchies of them, made a terrible mistake. If Mary Lou had been, for example, in the debate from the off, would she have got as much sympathy and support? Not by a mile.
Yeah,
if she
I agree with you.
if she had had the initial question and that she had the second night on the first night, and then had to go to a second debate where she was asked the same questions again, then she had a problem.
Totally, John. I mean, you know, Fianna Fáil fell into the trap.
Yeah.
We talk more about not going to power. We should talk more about the policy issue.
Correct.
Highlight the policy issue. And
Yeah.
that's where we got lost in it.
And that on top of what we talked about earlier, where you had the government, you had people who perceived the supply, the support of the government by Fianna Fáil. All you did then was reinforce that view in the public. Hey, listen, these two are thick as thieves. They're on the same thing.
Yeah.
They're telling
John,
you can or can't talk. So that's it.
I just thinking there's a lot of stuff going through my head. Brendan, I mean, going back to Pat the Cope, this must be a very, very difficult time. I can't imagine he in any way expected this, but I suppose you'd be thinking about him and you'd be thinking about Anne and everybody else.
I look at Pat lives and breathes politics, but I forgot when I was speaking earlier to pay tribute to his wife Anne, and indeed his broader family of his nieces and nephews who have all been so good to Pat throughout this campaign, but particularly to Anne. And any of us that have been in public life know the strain and pressure being in public life, being at the beck and call of the public can be on your family. Anne has given her life to supporting Pat in politics, and I just want to publicly recognise that. She's a very fine woman. I've known her for the last 30 years, and she stood by Pat through thick and thin, through successes and failures, and I want to publicly just to thank her for that.
Just going back to the question I posed earlier on, I've just brought up some figures that I have. I'm not sure if this is as up to date as I would like it to be, but 136 of 160 seats filled. And Brendan, you're better at sums than I am, but I make it there 72. If you put the Independents, Sinn Féin, Labour, Social Democrats, and the Greens in there at this moment in time, that's 72. And as I said, there are another plenty of seats still left, to be filled. 24 left. So what you said,
it's very possible. Look at the two headline figures, where you have Fine Gael on 30 and Fianna Fáil on 28.
Yeah,
that's 58.
Yeah, I didn't put into in with the left because I can't see into being involved with Sinn Féin.
Yeah, I think it's very self-evident.
There's one A2 seat, by the way.
That even if the two parties, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, were to coalesce at this stage, they don't have a majority of the House. So by extension of that, all others that are a member of Dáil Éireann have a majority of the House. Now is the time for the new way that we heard about, the alternative, the grand plan. Let's have it. Let's be having it.
Yeah, I haven't counted the A2, and there's one other there. I'm not actually sure who that might be, so I don't know whether that's left or not.
Yeah, just sorry, Michael. Brendan was talking about Pat the Cope earlier on. I have been the director of elections on the other side of the fence for many, many elections where Pat is there. I've always found courteous, a man who never really looked at somebody's political persuasion if he could do them a good turn. And it's sad that it looks like it's going to end this way, but I just think from somebody who was working as director of election umpteen times, I got to know Pat quite well. Very approachable, amicable fellow. And I just, again, his family, we talked about it yesterday, his family paid the price that every political family is paying, and it's important that we put that on the record for his good wife Anne as well. But I just want, from my own personal point of view, for all those elections over the years, to put on record that he was an absolute gentleman.
Niamh, I would suspect you would echo those sentiments.
Oh, Pat, I've known Pat not very well, I have to say, but from when I can remember him back, he was always in politics.
Yeah.
And I know he would have been very familiar with the fishing industry, obviously, eggs and that. So, huge respect to Anne, of course. They are the backbone at the end of the day of the politician, and the partner always is the one that gets the most of the abuse at the end of the day.
Go back through, because I was listening rather than writing. If you have tally figures in terms of where the transfers are going, I'm not sure if you do.
I would just I think that Pat will be pipped at the post at the end by something like 200 votes or little under by his running mate Charlie McConnell-Logue. So something less than 200 is the margin.
And in a sense then the other two candidates are elected before them, so to speak.
Without reaching the quota.
Okay, I'm just checking here. I got a little message saying that we should have an official announcement in the next 10 minutes. I think 10,
I'd
15
say
minutes.
10 minutes.
5 minutes. Is
Yeah.
5, I think.
5 minutes actually now we're being told. So, and just for listeners again, and unconscious people are on the way, I bring you in a second, Michael. We're hearing cheers across the hall, and I have a limited view here, but I can see Charlie McConlogue over there, and I saw cameras going off and flash guns and that, and I assume, that's on the basis that the tally
unofficial,
figures,
yeah.
So that's photographs of the sort, and then further down to my left again, the same thing. So there is absolutely a sense that what we're telling listeners is 110% accurate. That's the way it is.
Michael?
Yes,
Sorry,
Michael.
David.
I mean, definitely, the tally figures have been fairly accurate nearly all day and all the counts. I mean, so basically that's what you hear the shares of probably when because Charlie basically was basically thinking he was gone and basically he came back in and that. So I mean, it was just basically a difficulty. And again, I don't want to be. The same sentiments to Patrick Cope. I mean, it's a very difficult day, and if anybody stands in an election, matter how many elections you stand in, and that, basically, I mean, to go to election and put your name before the people so many times, it's very sad to have to end this way for Pat, for his wife Anne, and all the extended family. For me, basically, as a sitting Fianna Fáil councillor, I want to extend my sincere gratitude to all Pat Cope has done for the party and the south of the county. I mean, and, as I say, it's a very sad day for them personally. I mean, and and our hearts have to, basically go out to Pat. I mean, because someone that basically took politics and took it as his job and as life. Yeah, I mean, it is a sad day for him personally.
Yeah, go ahead, John George.
Michael, I think looking back to it, I think the absolute game changer in this today was Martin Hardy's transfers to Joe McHugh. Not in our wildest dreams could we have seen that. I don't know when. There was 3,000 votes of a basic vote there, the Martin Hardy core vote, and he transferred 2,000 of it to his running mate. I don't know when I've seen a transfer. At 66% again. I mean, there's nobody at any table here, and there's lots of media in here, could have remotely predicted. Everybody was saying 30, 33, 35. There is nobody in here.
Well, you're saying on a good day, 50.
50. I'm an incredible day. 50.
Exactly. I mean, and even their own people. People didn't even expect that.
Joe McHugh didn't expect that. So I don't know where Joe McHugh's going, but he should be buying drinks for Martin Harley for the rest of the night and for the next year, because he has saved his political career.
Yeah. Oh, very much. In fairness.
And I think that's.
But running mates seldom get gratitude from the successful candidate, do they, John?
No.
I can't find your 5, but I'm just looking here. 20 past 9, 9:30 yesterday morning.
Yeah.
Maybe before it. Niamh Kennedy picked Pierce Doherty. In this order: Joe McHugh, Charlie McConlogue, Padraig McLaughlin, and Thomas Pringle to get elected. Now, you didn't get the order right, but you got the names right. And John, Pierce Doherty, Charlie McConlogue, Padraig McLaughlin, Pat Cope, and Joe McHugh. And then with a note, Joe McHugh possibly in big bother. So, for what it's worth, I don't have a note of yours. I'm sure if I find it, Brendan, but
director of elections out with the 2 Fianna Fáil ones.
I would imagine so. And in some respects, it's a bit trivial to be. So we'll not go there. But just some people will ask, well, did you call it or didn't you? And that's just to do that.
Without doubt, Michael, it was the most complicated, hardest. There was no stage up to this final count here. Most elections in Donegal that I've ever been involved in, I'm sure everybody around this table, it's fairly predictable. The last 4 or 5 hours, you just wait for the formalities of the count.
Yeah.
But this one here was totally different. Up until this last count, you had no clue how this was going to pan out. It could have panned out 3 different ways at the very end. And it was an incredible election to be involved in.
Yeah, and let's
trends are gone.
Yeah, and let's just say this, and I'll just say it. The tally figures haven't been wrong, but it's not official. At this moment in time, as we wait for Geraldine to make the announcement, which is coming very soon. So, and I know what we're doing and everything all day yesterday was predicated by tally figures. So that's where we're at. But I suppose the one thing that strikes me is that this is the roughest, toughest, cruelest game. Like when you think back, Niamh, to Joe McHugh's face
Oh yeah.
when he was handed. You mightn't have been there, Michael, but we were chatting, and I'm not sure if you were there, Brent. He was handed a figure, and that figure was what he was getting from Martin Harley, and all his Christmases came at once, and he exhaled a very large breath of air. We didn't know. I actually initially thought there was something wrong, and then I began to realize this is good news. And then for his own reasons, he said, out of respect to the candidates, he didn't want to reveal it. But it became very obvious to me within 5 minutes, because everybody else standing around us knew what the figure was. So, as it turns out, that saved him. And maybe we weren't quick enough to pick up on that by saving his own man, it put the two Fianna Fáil runners
I
in
think
deep
it
trouble.
just wasn't the saving. I think it was the size. I think it was the size of the vote. The strange thing, instead of that, Pat got a very good vote from Martin Harley as well.
Yeah.
So did Pringle. But it was a strange vote. It was, as I say again, nobody could have absolutely seen that coming down the line. Even those who had checked said they had checked the boxes, came in with a figure 15% lower than that. And it's one of the most astonishing transfers. I still trying to figure out how it happened, I'll be honest with you.
Brendan, notwithstanding your disappointment, obviously, that Fianna Fáil are losing the seat, and I think your disappointment is even greater because you have worked so closely over the years with Patrick O'Gallagher. What are your takeaways from the election in Donegal? What if you're basically asked to give us 5 bullet points, what would stand out for you in terms of the learning from this and the message that we've got?
Well, in relation to the election, if you look at the campaign, right throughout the campaign, there was no visible signs of a surge anywhere, in fairness. We were meeting with the voters on the door. There was no animosity. There was, if anything, perhaps there was a welcome and there was surge, whatever we call it. The surge probably came about in the last 6 days of the election. There was some game changer or some movement in the process that changed everything. And that can happen. That happens often within elections. But for me, looking back, I think the most fundamental thing that I'll take from this election is how en bloc the entire electorate moved. We had a similar situation possibly in 2011 after the crash, but there was a very clear and self-evident reason for that. This time around, Fianna Fáil have taken an absolute hit, and if you look at probably the last 4 years, what did Fianna Fáil do differently? The only thing Fianna Fáil did differently in the last 4 years was through abstaining in the Dáil, prop up a Fine Gael government. And as I said on the first day that I was here and on the programme, that was a very difficult thing to do because we spent the previous 90 years fighting Fine Gael and in and out of power, they going in, we going in. And I think that was a bridge too far to cross for a lot of our core supporters. And then with the floating voters that voted for us in 2016 on the basis that we would provide a change of government, and we failed to do that because we failed to get elected. I think it was a mistake to prop up the Enda Kenny government because we failed to deliver anything of the mandate of change that was given to us by the election in 2016.
I'm just wondering, Brendan, and by all means, look, it's great radio, but I'll ask you the question, and you're just voicing an opinion here, but you don't seem to be happy with the Fianna Fáil front bench. You certainly don't seem to be happy with the way Micheál Martin brought along the Fianna Fáil party. You're a significant figure, not just in Fianna Fáil locally, at a national level, I would imagine. And you'll be going to a meeting at some stage in Dublin, and the news that you will be imparting is that the most senior politician in Donegal Alaskan Corla has lost the seat. And there's part of me suspects that you've been, for want of a better expression, hitting that note time and time again, and for whatever reason, nobody seemed to listen to you.
Okay, there's occasions, and John Campbell, who's a member of Fine Gael, or was a member of Fine Gael, it's difficult to get a message through to the leadership of any party. It's difficult to direct or guide an overall party, especially when, you know, the permanent staff of a party and those that do the policies for the party, they have very prescribed views. Now, the alternative in 2016 was to have a general election. In hindsight, Fianna Fáil probably would have been better to do that, but they chose not to. Micheál Martin, after all, was put before the Dáil on 3 separate occasions to be elected Taoiseach, and he didn't garner 1 vote. So those that are now talking about this new change and this radical change and change for the left didn't want to change anything in 2016, which is only 4 years ago.
But I think going forward, if you were sitting back as a director of elections that's about to be put in place, I think there's a fair few things from independent to Fianna Fáil to Sinn Féin that you would learn. I think you would learn loads from this campaign. I think you would learn the run-up on the run-up by the National Party or whatever it needs to be right.
Yeah.
If that is flawed from the start, you're pushing the. Certainly, the 2 big parties had it at that stage in that their own national strategies put them on the back foot. So to expect people, for example, in Fianna Fáil, like Michael Loughlin, to rectify it on the ground, you're putting their back. And I think that's the first thing. The obvious one, when the tide's against you, it's against you. But, you know, we've looked here at the canvas of some candidates, not everybody. That needs to be looked at, how the message is sold. Maybe social media has worked a lot more effective for the left wing than it has for the established parties. And, you know, you can see when any Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, councillor, TD posts, they generally tend to get absolutely hammered on social media. That has to be looked at. You talked about, I mean, Martin Harley incident this morning there about his family getting abuse on social media because he was a candidate.
Sorry, John Gerard. Geraldine is going to give us the figures.
In year the vote John O'Donnell at range. Shocked Mila Cade is a shay. Gallagher pat the cope Fianna Fáil Moja ní chéad fihes a hocht. Umlán voti ein vile yeg agus a shocktu cahar. McConnell Charlie Fianna Fáil Mila céad seascadó. Umlán ein vile yeg cericéad trechadó. McHugh Joe Fine Gael Moja Mila céad octu cahar. Umlán gá vile yeg céad is a cahar. Pringle Thomas non-party Moja Mila Cericade Noka. Umlán gá vile yeg gá chéad caraca cuig. Voti neamh in aistrithe. Moja gá vile trícéad caraca dó. Umlán vile seachcéad seascané. Níor bhain iarthóir an quóta ama sa chuntas seo. Ceannas go bhfuil iarthóir a bhain sa bhreis bhéid na síocháin atá fágtha le líana agus nach bhfuil faraspar fáil Mulliam an tíreachóir a bhfuil an líon is lua vóta aige a chuir as an áireamh. Is é sin agus fógraim go bhfuil na tíreachóir seo a leannas tofa gan an quóta a bhaint amach. Is iad Pringle Thomas, McHugh Joe agus McConaughey Charlie. Agus na síocháin ar fad líonta fógraim tarí an toghcháin a ógurt go hifigiúil I gan de bumate.
Pringle.
The
And
following
McConaughey
is the result
elected.
of the
Pringle
ninth
12,245.
which consisted of the distribution of
12,
John O'Donnell's
104.
votes,
Conlogue 11,432.
1,106.
Pat the Cope Gallagher 11,074.
Gallagher, Pat the Cope, Fianna Fáil. Votes this count 928. Total votes 11,074. McConaughey Charlie, Fianna Fáil. Votes this count 1,162. Total 11,432. McHugh Joe, Fine Gael. Votes this count 1,184. Total votes 12,104. Pringle Thomas, non-party. Votes this count 1,490. Total votes Total votes 12,245. Non-transferable papers not affected 2,342. Total 4,700. No candidate has reached the quota on this count. As there is one continuing candidate more than the number of seats left to be filled and no available, I am now excluding the lowest candidate, Pat the Cope Gallagher, and I deem the following candidates to be elected without reaching the quota: Pringle Thomas, McHugh Joe, McConaughey Charlie.
Charlie McConlogue. I can see Charlie McConlogue, shoulder high, down to my left. Ditto for Pringle. Can't see Joe McHugh supporters, but partially blocked view here. Basically to confirm, Thomas Pringle, 12,245. Joe McHugh, 11,432. And as Geraldine O'Connor makes her declaration, we can confirm that Pat the Cope Gallagher has lost his seat. And that is a big news story, whether you're in Donegal or elsewhere, in terms of a veteran politician and Las Cancorla losing his seat. So I think that's official. Just 2 minutes past 7 on day 2 here. And essentially, we now know the composition of the Donegal constituency: 2 Sinn Féin, 1 Fine Gael, 1 independent, and that independent, Thomas Pringle, is on his way over here. Well done.
I resurrected you twice.
We're being joined by Thomas Pringle. Congratulations, Thomas. Me earlier this morning that you slept well last night, slept like a log, and obviously knew something we didn't, but you don't do things the easy way. But having said all that, a fantastic performance coming out of a corner. You must be very, very pleased.
Yeah, I'm absolutely delighted. It's great. It's great to have it officially over the line now at this stage, and it's a great tribute to my campaign team who worked very hard to make sure that this would come to pass, and it's fair play to them. And that shows. Like, I mean, when you see it came down, obviously, to transfers, and we got transfers from literally everywhere, all over the county, and that came down to knocking on doors and talking to people everywhere.
You're the most transfer-friendly candidate by a mile,
Yeah.
and throughout this, and you've been taken in. I mean, does it not slightly surprise you, even in this final transfer, to pick up? It was a 1490 from a candidate who you're very critical of.
Yeah. I mean, that's the reality of the situation, But look, I mean, I think people voted as independent in Donegal. They felt that independent was the way to go, so we knew that those transfers would come back to us. And also, as well, what you have from other candidates is votes that have been transferred to them earlier on are coming back around as well. Like,
and that was something that some of the listeners didn't quite understand initially.
Seven and eight preferences coming back to us, and that's the reality of it. That's why we got such a big transfer,
Thomas, you could be part of a left government. The numbers are beginning to stack up to 80. The suggestion is that don't need Fianna Fáil, don't need Fine Gael. There is that serious possibility of a government formed that we're not quite there at 80, but not far away.
Hopefully, I haven't seen any of what's happening outside of this bubble at the minute, so I don't know.
Well, last time we looked, we added 72 of them.
Right.
And we didn't, at that stage, we didn't include you in that. There was, I have it here in front of me, 37 Sinn Féin, 16 Independents, 4 Labour, 4 Social Democrats, 10 Green Party, and we actually make that 17 Independents now with you. And there was also one other, and I wasn't sure, and there was an A2 as well, but I can't see that A2 candidate wanting to go into government with Sinn Féin. So, but that's, and there are still about 19 seats left to be filled nationally. Well,
I think that
dreams come true. You could, all those policies that you've been talking about for years and years, you could be in a position to be part of a government.
In reality, that's what the people voted for. I mean, the people voted for change. We have the obligation on us to try and deliver that now. I mean, I think that's what the reality of it. And and the people across the country rejected Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, and they wanted change, and they voted for that. And we have to work now to make sure that is delivered and that happens.
In 2016, it was the vote transfer of Tim Jackson that put you across the line, I think, on the 13 count by 84 votes. This time, it's somebody who you've criticised very vocally in terms of that RTE programme, John O'Donnell, but you crossed the line. You kind of, in a way, couldn't make it up. Politics is very hard to predict, isn't it? And the job of John and Brendan and Niamh to try and fathom a path through these transfers, this was the most difficult ever. But you had an air about you this morning that you're either a very good actor or you knew something that we didn't. But you were very bullish.
One thing you have to do is for the whole team that were everybody when you're doing the transfers or when you're doing the first count tallies, we were actually looking to see where the transfers were going and what was happening in relation to that, and that's very important so that we have an idea of how things are going for ourselves, so we know how the day is going to pan out, and it worked very well, and so we kind of knew how it was going to happen. But you have to wait for it to happen before you can actually say it, and that's the way we try and do things.
It's been a great election for Sinn Féin. It's been a good election for Independents. Not a good election for Fine Gael, but now in day 2, not good for Fianna Fáil because in Sligo Leitrim, and they've lost one here as well. So it's maybe their support and confidence in supply come back to bite them as well.
Yeah, well, I think it's been a good election for the Irish people, and the Irish people have said that they want to change. They've delivered that change. It's up to us to live up to that now.
So what do you do? I know it's very unfair. It's barely 4 minutes after the official announcement that you're elected. In the next few days, I imagine you'll be taking a phone call or 2.
Probably. Well, what I'm going to do tonight is go home and celebrate and sleep, and then we'll see what happens tomorrow after that. But maybe we will be. I'll go be talking to my colleagues. I think Catherine Connolly got re-elected today, and Joan Collins got re-elected as well. And I have colleagues who worked very closely through the last all with them. So we'll see. We'll talk to them as well. And look, that's important now. We have to look and see how the actual Dáil is put together and that we actually deliver the change that people have voted for.
Okay, come in, John.
Yeah, I think, well, two things. First of all, on Thomas's own personal thing, I think what was very impressive was your transfers, and that was really everybody from into John O'Donnell. Like, it was across the board. Just watching them there, I think that was the other thing. I think the second point that you make was true. The people have voted for change, and I think the onus is, I think the electorate will be very sharp annoyed with any public rep who now at this stage doesn't want to follow that mandate. They have given a mandate for change, and the parties, all the parties, have to respect it. And I think I personally, and I've been involved in politics a long time, I find it a very interesting time ahead, and I kind of look forward to what the changes in it. I know, Michael, it may sound strange, but I do actually.
Has Ireland has voted for a left-wing government?
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's historic.
It is historic. Like when you look at it, like since 1932, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael have controlled politics in this country. That has changed, and if you look even like since. I think in 2000 they had 86% of support. In the last election they had 48%. This election is even lower again, and that's important, and that's good, and that's positive. And and what we have to do now is we have to deliver on that, and we have to deliver for the people, and that's vitally important. Because what we need to do now is focus on people who are homeless, people who want to get health care and get health treatment, because that's where it's at, and that's what makes a difference to people's lives, and we have to focus on that.
Broadly speaking, if we get a left-wing government, and I'm wondering how you'll answer this, but don't tell me it's good for everybody. Will favour in terms of maybe a pound on the pot they need or want.
It'll favour the people that need a permanent home. It'll favour the people that need hospital care when they get it and don't have to and can't afford to pay for it. I mean, and that's the reality of the situation. Sadly, our governments up to now have delivered hospital care for people who can afford it, people who can pay for it, private hospitals, funding for them. That has been what we've seen in this country, and we need to change that, and we need to change that very quickly, because that's what's going to make a difference to people's lives. And that's the talk about built because there've been tax breaks given for developers to do that.
Well, I was in Dublin, and I was in Dublin, and the skyline is full of
hotels and building office blocks. They should be built in houses, and that's where we should be building for the people, not for businesses.
Looking back at the last 2 days, never mind the last 3 or 4 weeks, was there any stage, maybe yesterday, not so much today, because as I said, you came in very strong, that when you looked at the figures, you said, well, I am in trouble here, or is trouble your middle name in terms of elections?
Well, we're always in trouble anyway, so we just have to get used to living with that. Like,
you're good at coping with it.
Yeah, we get through it. And we always, every time and talking to people and transfers is what's key. And I don't know why people don't realise that, because that's what makes an election possible.
Yeah.
And the Irish system, the system that we have, is the fairest, it's the best electoral system in the world, and we should respect that and hold on to it. And it does deliver results. And and I have canvassed and knocked on doors, and we knocked on doors all over the county, and a huge team out knocking on doors, and that paid off today.
I'll be parochial. South Donegal is held on to a TD, where I live and where I vote. Obviously, you can't represent the people from that area. That also is important, because there was a sense maybe that we'd be very far away from the people we need.
Yeah. Look, I mean, that is difficult, and that situation won't be easily solved. And the question is, it can be solved quickly if the Irish people would accept that there'll be 15 or 20 extra candidates.
Alton, sit in here for a minute. Now, don't go this time. The last time you sat down, you ran. No, stay. Just stay for a minute.
I'll have to go and get ready for the actual official bit of this.
Give me a minute.
No bother at all.
Okay. Thomas Pringle is sitting in front of me, and to my right now is his son Alton, and we talked about that fantastic Facebook post. And we're not going to go over old ground here again, Alton. I'm conscious that Dad needs to get involved in the official end of this, where
Yeah.
they make the speeches and all that sort of stuff. But sum up as succinctly as you can how you feel in terms of the fact that he's.
I don't know if I can. It's a weird feeling. I know my sister Blahim was just saying that she was just so proud of him that she just couldn't stop crying. And that's kind of relatable, I think. But yeah, pride. Absolute pride. The third seat. I mean, yesterday we were saying we'd be fighting for the last one, so it's kind of amazing.
Well, he did say he'd win the third seat.
And I thought he was making it up. Yeah.
I thought I was Scotland.
Yeah.
I was.
Of course you were.
Yeah. But no, it's another 5 years. Once I know that.
It's significant though, Alton, as well, that your dad picked up votes all over the place on the transfers.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I assume you were out on the canvas with him, but
Yeah.
he's telling me here he did it the old-fashioned way. Basically, he bought a good
Yes.
pair of shoes and he wore them out.
Yeah.
Were you involved in that?
I only did one day because I was down in Dublin in college. But even the day we did last Saturday we were going around North Donegal, and it was incredible, the response. And I think what you see is someone who just is liked by everyone, and that's the ability to give that second or that third. And in some cases it was 7 and 8 tonight, but it still works. So yeah, I mean, 30,000 houses, I think, wasn't that it over the course of the canvas?
Massive.
Massive team, the biggest one we've ever had. And I think that is why we got such a huge transfer as well.
Okay. Well,
It was
listen.
lovely to see the youth actually this time with you,
Yeah.
Alton, you and your friends. It was lovely to see that with Thomas and support.
Yeah.
It brought that younger vote in as well, which is really, really good.
I suppose
Good
we have
to see
Leo
it.
Varadkar to thank for that too at this Saturday election. That definitely helped. I'm sure he's regretting it now.
That's the first nice thing a Pringle said about Liam Varadkar tonight.
Got a chip off the old block.
Yeah, I'm my own man. Thank you.
Yeah, you weren't texting him to say that. Listen, go and enjoy yourselves. It's a very big moment, obviously, for a family. And alluding back to what your post on Facebook, where just for those listeners who may not know what I'm talking about, yesterday I read out a post that Alton put up on Facebook in terms of the impact of somebody going into the world of politics. And in Thomas's case, he worked for the council's water department, and coming home from the waterworks, as he said, at 5, hello, what's the eat? Bye, meeting at 6, and see you sometime. And it went along those lines in terms of all the hours that were spent. And I suppose your concern there as well was that maybe that a lot of people might have missed that, Alton, but didn't.
No, I'm quite proud of him because I think it proves that there is a place for genuine honesty in politics, which is lost sometimes. And I think to be a bit sappy, I think that's what my dad has represented for the last 21 years, and hopefully for another 5 years, is just genuine integrity. So
Thomas, can I ask you one final question? Because I just don't want to keep you, and I don't want. Is this better than 2016? Was this trickier? Was this harder?
Well, it was a wee bit better because we were safe earlier on than we were in 2016. In 2016, we went down to the wire.
Yeah.
We knew earlier on, a couple of counts ago, we were okay. So that's a wee bit different. But it'd be nice to try to see getting elected in the first count, see how that would be for a change. But we'll try that next time round and see how it
Okay.
goes.
Well,
But I could just say as well that we're heading back to the Tara Hotel in Killybegs if anybody wants to go in there as well, just to
Okay.
have a bit of a celebration as well.
Okay. A few lemonades and maybe a McDade special.
a bit more than lemonade, I
Or
think.
water, probably.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Well, listen, I don't know if you've had a chance to speak to Charlie McConlogue.
No.
If you and he's been congratulated by Thomas Springle and by John Jared and by Nave. Charlie, thanks for joining us again. This is Charlie McConlogue, returned to the 33rd Dáil. I want to be very respectful of, I suppose, somebody who was kind of a political colossus in Donegal for so long. I'm sure you're glad that you're returned, but I suspect that when you consider that Pat the Coke Collar has lost the seat, Charlie, is that the wrong place to start?
No, it's absolutely the right place to start, and that's very much the sentiment. I'm relieved and very happy to be returned, but it is very much bittersweet that that Pat is not returned as well. That we're not taking the 2 seats, and particularly that somebody that Pat, who has been such a tremendous servant to the county and to Fianna Fáil, just very, very narrowly missed out on it today. And my thoughts are with that's a difficult day for the party in that regard. We came so close to, and it makes it even more difficult when you come so close to getting the two, and to fall just short. But it was early on today that there was 4 of us in the hunt for those 3 seats, and I knew from the very start of the day that I would be unfolding, that I would be very much very much close to the precipice in that regard, and everybody else was, and that's so it proved. And unfortunately, just from myself and Pat's point of view, we didn't pick the 2. I want to congratulate though Thomas Pringle, at a very nice performance. He's the master really at this stage of comebacks and of coming through counts.
Good man to come out of a corner.
A good man to come out of a corner, certainly, and he's made a habit of it.
Yeah. He's planning to top the poll the next time. He wants to make it easy on his family.
It'd be too dull for him if he was to do that, I think. So, and listen, congratulations to Joe, and obviously to Porrick and to Pierce as well. But from a Fianna Fáil point of view, we're very disappointed just to fall so short, so little short of the 2 seats. And my thoughts are very much in terms of the loss of Pat the Cope today.
The 2 game changers for us here would have been initially the huge transfer, an unexpectedly huge transfer from Martin Harley of 1932 to Joe McHugh. Nobody predicted those kind of figures, and we didn't realise it at the time that while it made him safe, it actually put yourself and Pat the Cope Gallagher in a scenario where you'd be fighting for the last seat, for want of a better expression. And then the important, critical one for you in terms of transfers, it was logical and it was geographic and it was slim margins, was John O'Donnell's votes going in more numbers to you than going to Pat the Cope. Are they, again, am I fair and accurate in that analysis, in that they were the two key things that...
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that the biggest move, no doubt, in the whole count process was the surplus and the distribution of surplus and the vote that Thomas Pringle got, Thomas got in that, and that changed the whole nature of the count and brought Thomas, and he got what he needed to be in the mix for a seat out of that. And then after that, I wasn't particularly surprised by Joe McHugh's transfer. They were party colleagues. I was expecting them to be north of, in around a 50% transfer. I felt that tends to be what you see. So although there was speculation that it would be less than that, I was braced for the fact that would be quite possibly how it could happen. So I knew from early on today that would very much pull me into the mix, and Thomas was picking up transfers in all directions. And we were hopeful that it wouldn't be as high as it was, but once it was as high, that meant that Joe was going to be safe, and Thomas was far enough ahead that myself and Pat, unfortunately, then were there for the last seat.
It must be very, very difficult, and Brendan Byrne has been here talking to us in terms of Fianna Fáil dealing with this. It hasn't been a good election for Fine Gael, but it hasn't been a good election for Fianna Fáil either nationally. It's been a bit of a struggle, and I don't mean to be the bearer. Scanlon may now be in difficulty. I think Frank Feehan, courtesy of a Walsh transfer, his running mate, may well take the 4th seat. You suffered perhaps for backing up the government, confidence and supply.
We did. That definitely impacted us in the election. And listen, if I want to wish him well in that contest. Yeah. He's somebody who I have great respect for, and who's a friend of mine, and somebody who's a tremendously hard worker and a great representative for Sligo, Leitrim, and South Donegal. And I'm sorry to hear that if it's tight there, and I hope he can pull through.
Okay.
But certainly, listen, we didn't, as a party, get the votes and the number of seats that we were targeting, and it was definitely much more challenging. There's no doubt there was a change shortly before the election started. Nobody predicted it. Party that gathered the votes during the campaign, and they certainly didn't see that coming either. And that's sometimes the way campaigns would be, and we certainly have to reflect on that and to learn from that. But but having said that, I think we're still very much in the mix to be the largest party, and hopefully that will be the case.
Will you just stay with me for a couple of minutes, Thomas? You have to go.
Oh yeah.
And listen, just give the last word to you again, and obviously relieved, happy, and going,
thanks very
going
much.
to celebrate.
I'd like to say congratulations to Charlie as well, and congratulations to Pat Cope and indeed all the other candidates who lost out as well. Like, unfortunately, in an election process, there's winners and losers, and it is a killer to be the last person standing that doesn't get elected, and that's very difficult. But so I want to just pass on those commiserations as well.
I appreciate that, and thank you for your time, Thomas. And again, congrats.
Right. Okay. Talk to you later.
Charlie, just come back to you, and I'm going to broaden it out a bit. We were doing our sums, and I know you've been preoccupied by your own figures, and it would appear the last time I looked, and not all the seats have been filled, but there is the possibility of 80 plus left seats being won now, and there is a possibility, how realistic that is, of a government of the left being formed if you combine the Independents, Sinn Féin, Labour, Social Democrats and the Green Party. John Gerd, and to much the same extent Brendan, said if that's the case, let them at it, and that maybe it's time for the people in Sinn Féin to go into government and road test their policies and what they're saying to the electorate. Are you surprised by that there is a possibility of a government of the left, that they have the numbers or will have the numbers?
No, I mean, obviously any bloc that can reach 80 numbers of 80, and there will be an onus on them to talk with one another and to see if they can match up the promises that they would make during the election in terms of actually delivering. Ultimately, you have to be willing to roll up your sleeves and get into government and do the hard work to deliver for the country, and if the numbers are falling, that there's the opportunity there for them, then that's an opportunity that they can explore. But we'll see how that unfolds. From Fianna Fáil's point of view, we'll be looking to see now in terms of what the final seat numbers are. We have been seeking to lead the government and a mandate for that. Let's see where we are in relation to that. Let over the next number of days then see what the options are.
How many people, Charlie, played a part, roughly speaking, in getting you elected, in terms of, I suppose, people on the road, people working with you? We heard John O'Donnell had 30 plus basically arriving into House of the States with him. Would you be able to pull those kind of numbers together?
Yes, you would be into the hundreds in terms of the people that actually would have given a day or an afternoon canvassing. Some people were out every day across the area, and we made a conscious effort to try and get to every door, and I think we got very close to doing that, if not exactly achieving that. And that takes tremendous effort by people in a voluntary capacity at a time of year and in weather which is very, very difficult. And it's not always the easiest thing canvassing either. So I'm exceptionally grateful to all of those people who actually put their shoulder to the wheel and put their faith in me. And I hope now that over this term of office that I can repay that faith in terms of servicing the county and representing the interests of Donegal.
What happens tonight? Go home and celebrate, enjoy, relax, switch off. Will you get a chance to do that?
I haven't thought that far ahead. It's been such a roller coaster of a day. As I say, everybody was saying I was safe earlier in the day because I was in third place in first preferences, but I knew despite the speculation, I knew where it was going to be in the final analysis, and when it was getting to that finish line where that it was going to be touch and go, so it was a real roller coaster of a day. But I listen, just this evening, spend a bit of time with my supporters and family, and over the next couple of days, you'd see me a couple of kids again, and get a couple of days to spend with them again. And then no doubt as a party we'll have to.
Many years ago, I asked a politician the same question, and that's say it was. And I said, "What are you going to do?" And their answer to me was, "I'm going to breathe."
I think that would sort of that would spot all right. That would the spot.
And you kind of get that, and I just share a moment with you as well, because I've never been so. TV cameras and cheers for Thomas Pringle. I just want to share with you, there was a moment there, you would be completely unaware of this, when we had Joe McHugh was at the table, and he was in a tricky place, and he was handed a piece of paper that said, I think it said 1924, and there was a palpable sigh of relief. I looked at him at one stage to see was he all right, but it was the most natural emotion, because there you are. You're live on radio. You're talking to somebody who's asking you questions, probing, asking you, this did not work out well. Fine Gael did that and all the rest. He gets handed that piece of paper, and the sheer relief. I mean, where he just literally exhaled, I'd say, for a good 10 seconds. And I looked at him, and he then, to his credit, he didn't want to share the information in respect of the candidates, but he basically knew that Martin Harley had handed him his security of getting that seat. Was your moment just literally when those final votes were announced by Geraldine, or had you a sense, because the tally figures have been so accurate, it's frightening?
Yeah, no, and listen, I mean, there was different times today where, as the counts unfolded, where it looked more and less likely, and certainly at the second last count with the transfer of the Harley vote, it looked maybe less likely at that stage for me, but so it wasn't, it wasn't like in back in, and we were hearing what the tally was here, and people were saying it looks like he might be just slightly ahead. That was at that stage that, but I think a lot of people felt that maybe it might have been the other way around, and that was the sense I was getting before that. So it was a roller coaster. I suppose from my point of view, I knew from early on today that it was going to be, right up to the edge, and it was going to be touch and go. I think a lot of the analysis throughout the day was that I was looking safe, but I knew where it was going to be. I myself knew where it was going to be at the very end, and I think then, the analysis coming into that last count caught up with where I thought I was at all day, and certainly I think there was a sense that I might be the one that wouldn't make it before that, but then just for me, the moment was when one or two said, "Look, it's looking like it might be okay," and more said it, and that it started, and then we got a final tally on John O'Donnell's transfers, and it showed that I would take the seat, but at that stage, it was also couched in the fact that we knew it was between myself and Pat, unfortunately, and we were down to one seat, and that's a very difficult way in which to hold the seat,
Okay. Listen, we won't hold on to you because I can see other media want to talk to you. Congratulations and thanks. You're an absolute gent for coming over and talking to us.
Again, thanks to all of you. Thanks to all on the Ocean team for your coverage of the country.
Not at all. Okay, congrats again. Thank you. So, one very relieved, happy man. That was a very, very tight day for Charlie McConlogue, as he said, taking the final seat. To our left, the TV cameras are capturing the views of Thomas Pringle and the joy of his supporters. That's a nice place for him to be, Thomas Pringle.
It just struck me there. It's an absolutely ruthless game to be involved in. I'm just, the emotions of Charlie McConlogue over the last hour. The stories circulate. You're falling behind. You're doing well.
You can identify with all of that.
You look here. You look at Joe McHugh when he was sitting beside us. The absolute palpable relief when the result came through. Yeah, you can imagine the disappointment.
I looked at Joe when Joe sat down. I wasn't sure what was going on because he was actually shaking.
He was, yeah.
And then to his credit, despite being under the kind of pressure he obviously felt under, he handled the questions. I can't remember now whether they were difficult or not, but he handled them well. But then that moment of release, as long as I live, I'll never forget that. And it was only when part of me thought there was something wrong, that there was nothing to do with elections that happened. Such his face, and then I realised that, obviously he's live on air, it's awkward, and he didn't want to react to it.
I think just popping back to that time, you had Martin Harley who had just delivered the seat.
Yeah, go ahead.
There to him, and many things I've noticed as we went through over there. But the one comment I would make here, I was watching from the start yesterday, and people had come in. What was absolutely, I have to give credit to Martin and his extended family, his brothers and that. They came here all day yesterday. They were in first thing this morning. Like they knew where this was going. He knew he wasn't be elected. And around there, they stayed there, they worked, and I've never seen a family, and I think it's important we recognize this. I've never seen a family round a candidate come there from the start, the first day to the second day, and stay so loyal to the very end and be so courteous. And it's a very unusual thing sometimes. People come and
you
go. You
probably saw them as well, and I know this involves more than a family, but I thought, did you see the puffer jackets that they had, Team Harley?
Yeah.
And I thought that was lovely. And to me, I actually saw it on TV with other candidates more on the East Coast, but I hadn't seen it here. Now, maybe other candidates have the same
I think
on
it's
them.
very important that
But the
team
word
Harley.
team, yeah.
I think that was important because I think anywhere that Harley went, even over our way, they did a very professional job on postering, on canvassing, and only for they did that, they would never have been able to deliver that to Joe McHugh. And I think you have to recognise the professionalism that they did.
Come back to
on
Mike.
3,000 votes.
Yeah.
You know, they delivered that, and as I said earlier on, it was a game changer. And it wasn't a game changer by accident. It was a game changer because Martin Harley, his brother, extended family, absolutely hammered the old Southwest constituency for votes.
Margaret, you come back. I assume actually Geraldine has gone to the mic, so we might just Geraldine O'Connor, and we might take that live. Sorry, John.
Thari na bhótála a rachtálu an ochtú lá fiara fiche. Con na cuaig siachán a lína inál ceantar hún na ngáil. Fógraim na hiarachóir seo a leanas. Pierce Doherty, Sinn Féin. Padraig McLaughlin, Sinn Féin. Thomas Pringle, non-party. Joe McHugh, Fine Gael. Charlie McConalogue, Fianna Fáil. The following is the result of the poll taken on February the 8th, 2020 to fill the 5 seats in the constituency of Donegal. I declare the candidates to be elected in the following order. Pierce Doherty, Sinn Féin. Padraig McLaughlin, Sinn Féin. Thomas Pringle, non-party. Joe McHugh, Fine Gael. Charlie McConalogue, Fianna Fáil. And I would like to extend my sincere thanks to the members of the Garda Síochána who have carried out such excellent work during the entire election, particularly Superintendent Michael Harrison and Superintendent Sean Grant and all other members of the Gardaí. Also the manager and supervisors, count staff for their excellent work, and I'm very proud of them. The court service staff included, and the Yellow Pepper restaurant for the excellent food provided. I would now like to invite any of the candidates in the count hall who wish to do so to come forward onto the stage. Gormahagi, thank you.
Okay, the candidates are, well, 2 of them anyway, Thomas Pringle and Charlie McConalogue, who are here beside us, are making their way to the stage.
Yeah, so I think they're just going to make speeches, but from our point of view, we're just waiting on Joe McHugh. He's been inundated with interview requests, so he should be with us. I know Pat the Coke Gallagher is here. He arrived a little while ago. He will be, or he's currently doing an interview with Vadi on the Gaeltata, and we'll just maybe in a few minutes just see if we can get him to come up to us. But it is a difficult time for her.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we take the live feed from the candidates. Okay. As I say, 2 of the candidates are on the stage. So I imagine.
Okay, so we'll just wait, and we'll just hopefully we'll have Joe McHugh in a minute or two. Really, the candidates are making the victory speeches, and
We've had the interviews, we've heard from them, and I think we'll shortly be wrapping up here from the Aura Centre in Letterkenny. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll see what happens. Thanks, Margaret. We're just waiting for the other candidates to make their way to the stage. In terms of this election, the big news, of course, is that long-serving TD Patrick O'Connor has lost his seat. Really is a huge surprise to many people, and certainly wouldn't have been predicted at any stage as far as until maybe we got into the last 3 or 4 counts and the distribution of votes from the different candidates, and it was very clear obviously then when we got down into Harley's votes that Thomas Bringle was going to be safe, and then the focus changed and turned, and we saw a situation where Martin Harley's transfer to Joe McHugh made him safe, and then it was a matter of where the votes of John O'Donnell went. We worked on the basis of what John O'Donnell was saying. We had an impression that John O'Donnell gave us that more of his votes would go to Patrick O'Gallagher, who he works very closely with, and the others would go in different ways, but some obviously to Charlie McConlogue. But in reality, what happened was the old East Donegal constituency stayed together and picked up, Charlie McConlogue, as opposed to Patrick O'Connor, picked up more of the votes. And that was critical in ensuring that Charlie McConlogue won the last seat, but as he said himself, won it at the expense of his party colleague, the long-serving Deputy Patrick O'Connor. So we've heard various tributes from victors and indeed from our own analysts here in relation to the service that Patrick O'Connor has given. As I said, he was elected to the Dáil in 1981. He was born in Burtonport in 1948 and grew up in Dunlow, and he served from I think it was 1979. He took a seat on Donegal County Council, and he was elected chairman in 85 and indeed in 86. And his most successful vote in terms of his election to the Dáil, that came in 1989 when he picked up 28.86% of the first preference votes. And that, as I said, he served from 81 to 1997 in Dáil Éireann, and returned to the Dáil for a second term in 2002 until 2009. During his time in the Dáil, he held various portfolios as Minister of State, including Marine, Gaeltacht Environment, Health and Transport. He was elected to the European Parliament in 1994 with 22.86% of the first preference vote, and was successfully re-elected in 1999 and 2009. Of course, he's grandson of Paddy O'Connor, who founded the Temple Crone Co-op in Dunlow, and many tributes were paid to his wife Anne Gillespie for her contribution and magnificent support through the years. So it's a very tough time for him. I see many of the Fianna Fáil stalwarts are here with him. I see David Alcorn with him as well. So he's going to come in for a very quick word here. Okay, yeah. And thank you so much to now former Deputy Patrick O'Connor. I was so used to saying it. Pat, this can't be easy.
You know, it's not easy, but by the same token, I'm a realist. The people have spoken. I'm not to be the representative. I'm not to be the one that will provide a service as I have from my office in Dunlow. I think that will be missed. But by the same token, I now have to close up shop and take life somewhat easier. And I think the only winner tonight is my wife, who doesn't have to pack the bags on a Monday evening or ship me off on a Tuesday. I came out over me in a ride tonight, and the roads, just be careful, anybody that's out there. I'll be able to take it a bit easier, and I'll be able to follow my beloved Donegal.
Fair enough, and fair play to you for, saying that and doing it. But and I know we're live on radio. I know you long enough to know that this must hurt, because even when you were an MEP, you were a county councillor, if that makes sense to you. You never stopped. And I remember my own brother going into your office in Brussels, and this is long before people had these laptops and Wi-Fi, and you had some sort of a gadget wired to a radio that went into the roof to make sure that you could listen to Radio na Gaeltachta. And I'm going back a very long time here. And you worked on the basis that politics was very, very local. You were tuning into Radio na Gaeltachta to pick up the deaths that they would announce on their bulletin. You were picking up passports. Somebody once called you Pat the Passport one day because you were failing people passports. A pothole on the road outside Dunlow, or a pothole on the road outside a house in Ballyshannon when we were in the old Southwest constituency. That was all important. It wasn't all about the big stuff. It was very often about the little things that maybe get you elected, maybe got you that 28.8%, as I alluded to in one of the elections. But you went into the county council, you were chairman there, 2 terms in the Dáil, MEP, returnees, last Cahirlock, many different portfolios as minister. Your political royalty, and today, I think must be excruciatingly tough for you and for Anne and for all the people that are standing here listening to us, because you haven't made it back after having given an absolute lifetime of service. I actually don't really know how you're sitting there.
Well, of course, I could have easily have stayed at home, but that's not my nature. I wanted to come here to thank the returning officer and the staff. I wanted to come here to meet all of those who did such a tremendous campaign with me. But you're quite right. As far as I was concerned, always no problem was too great or no detail too small. And your brother Tom was absolutely right.
Yeah.
I was councillor, I was acting TD and an MEP at the one time.
It was an amazing operation. Pat, politics has changed hugely on a personal level for you in terms of, losing your seat. But I mean, we're talking here about a government of the left being formed, that the numbers are beginning to add up. They're not quite at 80. And just in the more general thing, your own director of elections, Brendan, was saying, as did John Jared and others, that maybe it's time for a government of the left, because I constantly hear people in Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil say to me, well, all of that stuff is great, but it's not deliverable. And maybe it's time to put what Sinn Féin and others are saying to the road test.
But of course, we have to be realists. The government of the left don't have the numbers. And it will be very fragmented, all of that. But let them all sit down. The people have spoken. All leaders of all parties and none should sit down after I don't think it'll happen before the 20th of February, but they should sit down after that and try to give us a secure government. It's a very difficult time for Ireland now that by the end of the year, we may not be able to continue the talks between Europe and the EU. So I would respectfully suggest to all of them, sit down, talk. If I were part of that, of course, I would have been giving my full support to Micheál Martin and voting for him as Taoiseach.
I don't know if you're in the mood for dissecting the figures, but things changed dramatically here in terms of the transfer and the number of votes that Martin Harley went back. He said that yesterday, that when it would come down to it, that if his votes were transferring, he felt that because of his close relationship with you, and that's, everybody knows that you work very closely together, that a larger part of the transfer that might ordinarily be expected would go to Pat the Cope Gallagher.
Well, it was expected that John coming from the Fianna Fáil, that we had hoped, and I would have liked to return to Ballyern with Charlie McConalogue to continue to provide in the service, but the people have spoken, and I am quite relaxed about it all. And the people that I feel sorry for are those people who work with me day and night, and many of them are here today. The councillors did a tremendous job. They work with all of the others in the respective year. I have kind of no regrets about the campaign. We did a tremendous campaign.
Yeah, there are people here holding back tears, and you have many councillors listening to us. Maybe rather than me ask you a question you don't want to answer, maybe do you want to just talk to them maybe through the radio? And what's your
It's
message?
an opportunity, of course, for me to thank all of those, from my Director of Elections, Brendan, to the councillors in the Old Southwest and the Finn Valley, Jerry Crawford, Patsy McGowan, Martin Naughton in the Donegal electoral area, and of course Anthony Malloy and Norrie McGarvey. They did a tremendous job. Every place I went, they had crowds organised to canvass with me. When I look around, I see so many more people. Former councillor David Alcorn, and I'm afraid to mention other names because I'd leave somebody out, but they know themselves who did this, and the campaign and the work that they did, I couldn't fault it.
Is this the wrong? I know you need to go. Is this the wrong time to ask you? But you said maybe you talked to me the other day about doing 4 or 5K, and the Fitbit has been very, very busy. Is that it? Feed up for a while, or
yeah?
regroup?
Well, we have to tidy up first of all. You just can't lock the door. We will tidy up, and I'll be closing the office now because, incidentally, I'm still last Concorla until the 20th. I retain that office. So I'll have an opportunity to tidy up and spend much more time at home and go to the football, Gaelic and soccer.
Okay. Listen, that can't have been easy. Thank you so much for coming down and sitting down and talking to us. Thank you very much. That's Pat the Cope Gallagher. The end of an era, John Gerd, in terms of, as I said, Colossus. It's the most unexpected.
Without doubt, an end of an era. As I say, I have known him for many, many years. Very professional politician, very local, always treated local problems, from be it somebody with a passport to a pothole, the same. And, he's had a lot of service for Donegal. It's, it's sad to see somebody go out on the last count like that. But Pat's a very realistic person. He's politically experienced, and you have to admire the way he handled things there. That's difficult in front of all your own
hugely
supporters.
dignified.
An absolute dignity again to the last minute, and I know knowing Pat the Cope, he'll feel more sorry for the people who are standing behind us here. His great backup team than he will for anybody than for himself. But he can walk away very proud. A great service to the people of Donegal as a councillor, as a Cahiria of the council, as a minister in fisheries, as a last Concordia. So he has nothing to be ashamed of when he walks away with a proud record like that. And we wish him all the best in whatever he decides to do.
Well, it's a political involvement over more than 5 decades. It's incredible.
Yeah, he's part of the political history and folklore of Donegal, and no matter what happens, he will always be an incredible servant to Donegal. And look at, he was one of his areas of expertise was the fisheries, and I know he delivered that at a very tricky time. I know from my own area that was something he delivered very, very much.
Okay.
To when it was required back then.
Okay. Thank you very much, John Jordan. Thank you for your contribution. We're going to wrap up here from the Count Centre in Ora. In the background, the candidates are extending thanks to the voice of Charlie McConlogue. I just want to very briefly sum up. Donegal constituency has returned 5 TDs. As you know, 2 of them were elected on the first count, exceeding the quota, both from Sinn Féin, Pierce Doherty and Patrick McLaughlin. And on the 9th count, Thomas Pringle, Joe Pugh and Charlie McConlogue, in that order, were deemed elected as a result of the final transfer of votes from John O'Donnell. So, in essence and in short, 4 of Donegal's 5 sitting TDs were returned, and Patrick McLaughlin, who had been a TD, is back in Dáil Éireann. I want to extend my thanks to all the people who texted in and those who sent messages last night who said they enjoyed the coverage. It was wall to wall, it's old style. I haven't done it in a very long time. I think the last time was in the Northwest Radio days across from the BBC, and we were down in New Row. It was very different, and at that time we were relying on old-fashioned typewriters, so that's how long ago it was. Great fun. I have to extend special thanks for Daniel Bannon, who has been fantastic here in making me sound almost reasonable. And particular thanks to Andrew Mooney back at base in Sligo. And a grateful thanks to my old buddy from Bundoran, Shane Smith, who has been working very hard as well. In particular, I want to thank the resident analysts who we slagged and insulted. Brendan Byrne, who's, I imagine, somewhere in the hall. Niamh Kennedy, who is here but gone from the table. And John Jerd, who stuck it out to the last. And in particular, I want to thank Margaret Carr Flynn, who asked me to do this. And it's been a long time since I've been on radio for more than a minute or two. This was a lot of fun. I hope it was useful. I think the advent of local radio way back in the mid-80s has been very, very important. And I gather that people really got this. And if you're into politics and you're into elections, this kind of coverage is what people want. So my who to Ocean FM and all the other people involved in radio, and my particular thanks to those other journalists who work with me in the Donegal Democrat who were feeding me information as well. So that's it. Slán Óháille, it's coming up to 8 o'clock. We're done and dusted in Donegal, and the big headline now, yesterday's headline was two Sinn Féin romping home on the first count. Today, it's the end of an era as former deputy, I should say now, Pat the Cope Galler, has lost his seat. And in a real battle royale, Thomas Pringle, Joe McHugh, the outgoing Minister for Education, and Charlie McConlogue have taken those last three seats. So thank you so much to everybody. Shin Shin.
And thank you very much, Michael. We were delighted to team up with yourself. And do you know what? It's like you were never off radio at all. You just sat in the seat and you were straight into it. And we really appreciate it. And thanks a million, and indeed to your colleagues at the Donegal Democrat as well. And we're actually going to be joining Niall Delaney and the team now at the Sligo Leitrim count, which is still ongoing.